What is going on, my Jets family? I want to thank you guys, like always, for tuning in to the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. You got me, Harrison Glazer. I'm excited to be here with you guys on this Monday evening. I wish we could have won the game, but we had a chance of winning the game, and we're going to talk about that. So, first things first, again, I see you guys coming in. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for being part of the podcast. Appreciate all you guys. If you haven't, please subscribe to the channel. You can do so by clicking on the logo in the bottom right corner of the screen right here, and that will get you subscribed. So, yesterday on Sunday, the Jets had their first game. The Jets played the Carolina Panthers at home. And as you guys remember, on Friday, I brought you guys my keys to victory, what I felt the Jets needed to do to win the game. They unfortunately did not, as you guys know. The end score was the Jets 14, the Panthers 19. So we're going to get into all of it. We're going to get into, positional analysis, talking about all the different guys. Again, appreciate all you guys here. Psyched to have you. So talking about the game. So as you guys know, and as you saw, that first half was rough. It was really, really rough, man. That was a rough first half of football. The Jets did not look good. The offense looked bad, but more importantly, and we're going to get into it, more important than anything, was that offensive line. That Jets offensive line did not look good. In fact, it was horrendous. It was absolutely awful. And as you guys know, offensive line is a major, major priority of mine. So that really upset me. The offensive line was just awful. The offense couldn't get anything done because of that offensive line. They couldn't run the ball. But we're going to get into it. The running backs didn't look good on their own to begin with. We're going to talk about the wide receivers, talk about the defense, and how in the second half, they both started playing better. And that's first thing we're going to talk about, the beauty of second half adjustments. Because as you guys know, as you guys have seen, for the last couple of years, we've talked about, we won't mention the head coach trying to fit that, square peg into a round hole. It was brutal. It was tough to watch and no adjustments being made. Like we said, in the first half, it was awful. The first half of the game was really, really bad. And none of it was on Zack Wilson. If you watched Zack, we're going to talk about him more. We'll get into it. But he was constantly under duress, constantly on the move. And he looked great, in that aspect. As you guys mentioned, Robert Saleh, mentioned it today in his press conference. He said one of the best aspects of Zack is his pocket presence. And as you guys know, I've talked about that a lot. I brought up to you, his pocket presence. As you know, when we've talked about Zack, he does a lot of things well, but it's just that one thing that's above everything else. It's just that one thing that's much, much higher, just his pocket. And we saw that with escaping that sack from Brian Burns. But at the same time, we're going to get into it more. He just blew right past George Fant. George Fant, wasn't even blocking. He just went right through him. It was ridiculous. So, again, we're going to talk about all that. I see you guys coming in. Again, appreciate you guys being here. But the first thing that needs to be addressed, because it's so important and not talked about enough, those second half adjustments. Because as we saw, the defense played better in the second half. They allowed less yardage. In the first half, we have the points up. If you look at the points, by the quarter. Give me one sec, guys. Bringing it up for you now. I had it up a second ago. That's weird. I don't know what happened to it. But anyway, as you guys know, the defense allowed basically no points in the second half. And the offense really kicked it up, played better. The offensive line was still bad. The offensive line was still not good, but the scheming was better. People were getting open. Zack was able to find Corey Davis on 2 touchdowns. And we're going to get into that with Zack. But that second half adjustment, that was huge. Because like we talked about, that was something we weren't seeing in the past. That was something we're not seeing with previous administrations. So now we have these second half adjustments where, like we were just saying, we have a team that really looked awful in the first half, looked absolutely awful, completely out of sorts, playing really, really poorly, comes in the second half, brings themselves back in the game, has an opportunity to come back in the game because of the adjustments they've made, and Zack Wilson, a rookie in his first game ever, almost does bring him back. So those second half adjustments, not talked about enough. Like Salah said, they're going to get, back to work, back to the drawing board, get better from here. But just those adjustments in that second half are huge alone. So we're going to get into Zack Wilson and Sam Darnold. But one of the big storylines, talk about Matt Amendola quick. As you guys remember, Braden Mann got hurt. Our punter got hurt. We're like, oh man, this is just sucks, typical, whatever you want to say. Matt Amendola comes in. He can punt. Like what? Like that dude can punt. Like we have our kicker who's a rookie, who, as you guys know, we've been looking for a kicker for a long time. In comes Matt Amendola, who won the competition in camp, has an unbelievably strong leg. The dude can punt. The dude can punt too. So Matt Amendola kind of should get the MVP for that game, other than Zack Wilson, because other than him and Corey Davis, really you got to give it to a guy like Matt Amendola. Like it was just, yeah. So Matt Amendola can punt too. Just throwing that out there. But as you guys remember, when I, on Friday, gave you guys, the keys to the victory for the game, we talked about the matchup between Zack Wilson and Sam Darnold. And we'll start first with Sam Darnold. So starting with Sam Darnold, the numbers don't look bad. His numbers weren't bad at all. They were pretty good, but they don't tell the whole story. Sam Darnold's numbers do not tell the whole story because his numbers are massively inflated by Christian McCaffrey. I mean, Christian McCaffrey in the short passing game had 9 balls targeted his way, like Christian McCaffrey does. He caught them all. He caught every pass his way. So McCaffrey in the short checkdowns, a lot of passes were short or not even intermediate. Most of them were short passes. And then eventually you get a bomb to Robbie Anderson, which we're going to get into, that wasn't on the corners. That was really the safeties, and we're going to talk about that because as you guys didn't see it on Twitter, gave you a quick snapshot of the game, and we're going to get into more detail about it now. I thought the corners played great, and we're going to talk about them because I was excited about them, but the safeties didn't, and the safeties didn't, and now we have the injuries at safety too. So Sam Darnold had good numbers. The numbers were definitely good, but again, inflated by like we just said, Christian McCaffrey in the short passing game, inflated by the time he had. And we're going to get into that because the Jets defensive line, it's a very interesting situation. In fact, we got pressures in that game. And we're going to talk about this. We got QB hits in that game. In fact, we only had 2 less QB hits than the Panthers. That sounds surprising to you, and it should, because it wasn't translating to sacks. We weren't getting sacks. We're going to get into that, but just, to think about it for a sec. The Carolina Panthers had 10 quarterback hits in that game, and they got to Zack Wilson 6 times. We had 8 quarterback hits in that game, almost the same number. But we only had 1 sack, just 1. So we're going to talk about that, and I definitely think that's something Salah's going to address because it's unusual that they had similar pressure, honestly, like the Carolina Panthers, but it didn't translate. So we talked about Sam Darnold. Again, the numbers, they're not bad. They're not great. They're not jump off the page. I mean, we got a 47.2 QBR, 102 rating, 1 touchdown, no pick. It's not great, but again, massively inflated by Christian McCaffrey. If Christian McCaffrey wasn't in that game, or it would be a massively different on its own, honestly. But let's dive into Zack Wilson. So now we talked about Sam, let's talk about Zack. Now, as you guys remember, and you saw throughout the game, Zack Wilson was running for his life. I mean, that was awful. That was like, there's not even words I can express, honestly, to how upset I was to see that. How surprised I was, honestly, to see that, because we knew our offensive line wasn't the greatest. Let's be honest. We'll call a spade a spade. We knew our offensive line wasn't the greatest offensive line, but we kind of expected average play. That was horrible. That was absolutely horrendous. If you guys remember, if you saw it after the game, I had a big tweet I put up, box of shame. The whole friggin' offensive line belongs in it. The whole offensive line for the Jets after the game should either have gone in a room and sat in the dark quietly to reflect on what they did, or allowed Salah to yell in their face. I don't know. But it was beyond horrendous. If you guys want to come with a word, beyond horrendous, it was beyond horrendous. Zack Wilson was running for his life the entire game. And even while he was running for his life, he was escaping the pocket well. He faked out Brian Burns, who's not slow by any means. I mean, that guy is not a slow edge rusher. Faked him out and got away from him. And in the process, threw a great deep ball that got dropped. And we're going to talk about that too. Zack Wilson had no help this game. I mean, you want to give a rookie quarterback help. We talked about how we felt that Joe Douglas had given our rookie quarterback help. And on paper, he has. But in the game, shit, guys, in the game, he had no help. In the game, it was the Zack Wilson show. It would have been better if Zack Wilson was blocking for himself and then throwing the ball to himself in certain instances. It might have gone better because we're going to get into the wide receivers. Massive key drops, especially from Elijah Moore, who, again, is a rookie in his first game. But you can't have that. I mean, yeah, you're a rookie in your first game. I get it. But that's still not acceptable. So Zack Wilson, we're going to talk about him for a sec because we talk about that pressure. So what I'm going to do, and this is interesting, I was able to break down all of Zack Wilson's drives. So I broke down each one of Zack Wilson's drives. Sorry, I have it up here for a second. I don't know why I couldn't get the number and I didn't want to. So the Jets were trailing 16-0. Sorry, the Jets were trailing by 16. I apologize. The Jets were trailing by 16 at the half and then come back and only lose the game by 5. So that was the number I was trying to get before. I wrote it down and I had a bunch of stuff up. I couldn't find it. But like I said, we're going to go through Zack Wilson's drives. So we said that first half, not good. Not good, like really bad. I mean, the offensive line was bad throughout the whole game. But again, like we talked about before, the thing that is not emphasized enough, second half adjustments. Robert Saleh adjusting. Mike LaFleur, even though, again, and I can point this out, I know some fans said it too, I expected more from Mike LaFleur, and I'm going to be honest. I felt like, again, we hear all the time, like remember, Mike LaFleur said it, and I tweeted it out because it was so big to me that Mike LaFleur said that this unique offense, that was the Shanahan offense, that was passed down to him, that was going to be created and schemed based on his player strengths. Remember, that's what we got all excited about. But that was not great offensive play calling. So, yes, the offensive line was bad. Yes, the wide receivers had key drops. But on top of that, I don't think the play calling was great as well. So I just, from my personal perspective, I felt like the play calling got better in the second half. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. Better play calling in the second half, better defense in the second half, allowing them to shut down Carolina, adjusting to what they were doing, stopping McCaffrey a lot more. Remember, most of McCaffrey's yards came in the first half. Adjustments, figuring out how to limit him more, changing things, the defense playing better, allowing the offense to come back. So the offensive line was pretty much horrendous the whole game, like literally the whole game. So that first half, we go back to, Zack Wilson. Obviously, first drive, only complete one ball for 7 yards. Second drive's a 3 and out. Next drive's a 3 and out. Oh, I got it right here. The next drive is a little bit better. He's 3 for 5 for 34 yards. But then the next drive is another 3 and out. So out of those first 6 drives by Zack Wilson, 3 of them were 3 and outs. And like we just talked about, it wasn't on any fault of Wilson. I don't have the film. The film is up. If you guys check out the highlight footage, you can see it. In the play where he threw it deep to Elijah Moore, he escaped the pocket beautifully, and that was a great throw. That throw was mint. It was right in the hands of Elijah Moore. Yes, some people say there was pass interference, where the guy might have hit Elijah Moore's hands a second before the ball got there. But in real time, that's hard to assess. And in real time, it probably looked bang, bang, where it was at the same time. So that's what it's like in the NFL. Elijah Moore is going to have to adapt to it. That's what it's like. That was a key drop. And we saw other key drops too. So in those first 6 drives, that's 3 and outs. And again, mainly on the offensive line. Kind of like almost 90%, I would say, on the offensive line. And then the rest is on the wide receivers and the running backs. Zack Wilson, again, I talked about during the game. He was running for his life. This dude, the tackles were literally folding, literally collapsing. They were coming around the edge at will. And even the middle of the line, Derek Brown was collapsing that line into Zack Wilson. And you guys might remember from last year when I talked about with Sam Darnold, when the offensive line collapses in front of the quarterback. It's one thing when edge rushers come around the edge, but when a line literally collapses into the quarterback, you can't see shit. Remember, these offensive linemen, they're 6'5", 6'6", maybe 6'4". Zach's 6'2". Most quarterbacks are 6 foot, 6'2", 6'3". When the offensive line collapses into your face, you can't see. If you want to play quarterback with the offensive line collapsing in your face, cover your eyes and then make an accurate throw. That's what you got to do because he can't do it. So the offensive line, travesty, train wreck, absolute train wreck. So now we get into the second quarter. So now we're into the second quarter now. So first drive, not good. Didn't seem good. Another bad attempt by the Jets. Then we get to the next drive. Now he's 2 for 2. Then we get to drive number 10, where it finally came together. That was the 8-play, 70-yard drive for the score, where Zack Wilson went 4 for 4 for 57 yards. And as you guys remember, I pointed out during the game, that was the first drive the offensive line didn't look like they should be literally, I don't want to say something too hard. I was going to say shot in the head, but literally had their heads cracked together like coconuts. That was the first drive the whole game where the offensive line didn't look just awful. They didn't look good. Please don't think I'm saying they look good. They went from being the worst thing to like bad. They were still bad, but it was better than what it was, and it allowed him to have this 8-play, 70-yard drive with 57 yards through the air and a touchdown. Now we get to the next drive, 3 and out, not promising. The drive after that, that's when the beauty happens again with the offensive line blocking better and Zack Wilson's learning. Remember, we talk about how smart this kid is, how intelligent of a quarterback he is, how he's always learning, getting better. He studies the film. He's studying it while he's playing. So through the first quarter, through the second quarter, now we're in the fourth quarter now. He has a little bit of a better idea. He has a better idea of how the Carolina defense lines up, how they operate, what their strengths are. And he exploited that in the final drive. In drive number 12, Zack Wilson goes 7 for 9 for 108 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, that was the drive where Mims caught his pass, and we're going to talk about Mims because Mims is definitely part of the conversation. So don't get me wrong, we're going to talk about him. But Zack Wilson ends the day having gone 20 for 37 for 258 yards, for 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Now, that 1 interception, I believe my apologies, I might have skipped that drive that was drive number 7 right before the half. Wait, no, sorry, my apologies. That was, hold on, I have it right here, I made a list. That was drive number 4. That was drive number 4 where he threw that interception. And it wasn't the worst interception. As a rookie, he made a bad read. He didn't expect the corner. Pretty sure it was a corner, I believe. Whoever the defender was, to break on the play and get there as fast as he did, it was a bad read. But he didn't make it again. As you guys remember, on Twitter, I pointed out, okay, well, Zack threw his first interception. Well, my question's now, how does he look on the next drive? Does he shake it off? That memory of a goldfish. And does he make that same mistake again? Or is he learning? Those were the questions I wanted answered. Well, unfortunately, as we know, the next drive didn't translate much better. The next drive was 3 for 5 for 34 yards. And then the next drive after that wasn't good. Remember, 3 and outs in the first 6 drives. But again, it wasn't really on him. And he did the best with what he had in his first game. So, and what, he had to work with. So that's Zack Wilson's numbers. And again, we go back to, improving from the half. So at halftime, Zack Wilson was 6 for 16 for only 84 yards with no touchdowns and 1 interception. I guarantee, and I bet you guys can tell me who it was. I guarantee there were people out there at halftime. Zack Wilson's a bust. He's the worst quarterback ever drafted by the Jets. They should have kept Sam Darnold. Blah, 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 blah. Guarantee it was happening. That was bad, that first half. But again, the second half adjustments. The offense playing better, the wide receivers getting open faster, the defense playing better, scheming to strengths. We saw those adjustments, something that we haven't seen in a long time, unfortunately. So that was, again, a big thing for me, those adjustments. But like we said with Zack, 6 for 16 for 84 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Now, in the second half, at the end of the game, he's now 20 for 37 for 258 yards and 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. In that second half, he threw both of those touchdowns. So Zack played significantly, significantly better. So That's the Sam Darnold, Zack Wilson comparison. Again, like we said, Sam Darnold, the numbers are padded. He didn't have a great game to begin with, but even the okay game he had, the stats are padded. And Wilson, like we just talked about, he really was great. If you factor in all of these things working against him, he really was great. Because when he scrambled out of the pocket and, was able to get away from these edge rushers and the linemen that were constantly in his face, he made damn good throws. He made damn good throws that were accurate, but the wide receivers dropped a lot of them. So now we're going to get into, as you guys remember, if you guys were here on Friday, I gave you guys my keys to victory in the game. And we're going to talk about how that happened or didn't happen, and we're going to talk about each position. So now we're going to get into positional analysis. We'll talk about all the different positions, and we'll get into those keys. So as you guys remember with Sam Darnold, the biggest things I pointed out were his new weapons. He finally had talent around him in Christian McCaffrey, one of the best running backs in the game, and 2 1,000-yard wide receivers. Now, as you guys remember, my first point, the most important point. Remember I said, this is it. This is the most important point. You have to, even if you don't shut down, you have to limit. You had to limit Christian McCaffrey. And again, kudos to those adjustments the Jets did in the second half. In the second half, Christian McCaffrey didn't nearly as well as he did in the first half. Most of his yards came then. So they didn't really shut him down, but that was key number one, shut down Christian McCaffrey. Key number two, as we talked about, were those young DBs. And you guys remember, my take was I like our young DBs. Remember, I was telling you how much I liked our young DBs and felt like they had a ton of potential. And everyone was talking about how, they're all late round draft picks, either 5th round or 6th round or undrafted guys. And they're like, and everyone's just equating that to them sucking. And I'm like, well, you can't say that yet. If they suck, then you can say that. But remember, we hadn't seen them yet. And my take was I really liked them. Remember, I told you guys how much I liked Hall, how much I liked Guidry, Carter, Eccles, all of these guys. And these are the guys we saw starting. And they looked very good. The young CBs, the young DBs looked very, very good. Bryce Hall stepping into that wide receiver 1 role. Stepping into that CB 1 role. Covering that wide receiver 1. Did a pretty good job. I mean, DJ Moore did have a good game, but Hall, for the majority of the game, was excellent in coverage from what I saw. And I don't remember who it was on, but I remember there was a deep ball that he actually kept up with the guy. As you guys remember, my big thing with Hall was you're only going to beat him over the top. Like, he's physical, he's big, he's strong, he's very quick, but he's not the fastest guy. But he actually, again, forgot who it was on, but there was a deep throw where he played really well. He kept in stride with the guy and covered well. So he played well. Michael Carter, as you guys know, had the only pass defense. So there was only one pass defense in the whole game for the Jets, which is not good, really not good. I mean, you want more than that. But again, the young CBs did look good. They looked promising. And Michael Carter II had that pass breakup. So Michael Carter II is now honest, I mean, Javelin Guidry played and he looked good, but it looks like Michael Carter II is going to be the main slot guy. I mean, unless Guidry, balls out week 2, but Michael Carter II had a very good game. He had a very, very good game. So him and Guidry will both be in the slot, but it looks like Michael Carter might have gave himself an edge in this game. And remember, I talked about Brandon Eccles. Remember, my big take was, as you guys remember, Brandon Eccles has the speed and the jumps to really cover anybody. And he was good. In fact, the only deep ball that Robbie Anderson caught, that big deep pass, wasn't the fault of any of the CBs. It was the fault of the safeties. And I'm going to get into that when we talk about the safeties, that the CBs look good, but the help over the top did not. They did not look good in the backfield. The help over the top looked very weak at best. I was not impressed with the safeties. But the young corners looked very impressive. Hall looked very good on the outside. Eccles looked very good on the outside. And Guidry and Carter II looked excellent in the slot, especially Carter II. So as you guys remember, my third point was needing to get to Sam Darnold. I was saying you got to get to Sam Darnold often. Remember, Bart Scott had mentioned, and I mentioned it too, you got to make the kids see ghosts. You got to make them see those ghosts. So the Jets D-line was good, but like we said, it only translated to 1 sack. So remember, I gave you guys the number before, which is kind of interesting of you. 1 sec, I have it right here. Yeah. So the Carolina Panthers had 10 quarterback hits in that game. And that 10 quarterback hits translated to 6 sacks. The Jets had 8 quarterback hits in that game. That's not a bad number by any means. but it only translated to 1 sack. So, and we look at the pressures, they weren't bad either. So according to PFF, 4 Jets defensive linemen recorded 3 pressures each. John Franklin Myers, who had arguably the best game of any Jets player. He had an 80-something PFF grade. I think it was like 80.7. If you guys give me 1 second, I know I had it up. I could bring it up again. It was really impressive. He had a high grade, and so did Foley. I'm going to talk about him as well because I was, as you guys remember, very, very high on Foley. I felt if we were going to stop Christian McCaffrey, I felt like Foley was going to get a lot of time. So, like we said, 4 defensive linemen for the Jets recorded 3 pressures each. So that's 12 pressures between the 4 of them. That's John Franklin Myers, Quinnen Williams. Now, Quinnen Williams was neutralized a lot this game. And I do want to say that because just pointing this out quick, I saw a lot of people on Twitter kept saying the same thing. Q didn't play in the game. Obviously, it's a joke. But they're like, Q didn't play in the game. Q is invisible. Q is invisible. And as we just stated, Q had 3 pressures. So I wouldn't say Q was invisible. I'd say Q was neutralized. And that's surprising because, again, Q was going against guys like Pat Elflein. I mean, Jets offensive linemen in the past, especially Pat Elflein, I mean, I liked him. You guys know I liked his potential, but he's not like a Pro Bowler. He's not great by any sense of the word. I was shocked, but hell, maybe he had a game. I have to go back and look at the footage. I think I remember Quinnen being double teamed often. I remember seeing Quinnen specifically when he was on because I remember like, oh, we don't not hearing a lot from him. He got double teamed a good amount. So they were smart. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. Quinnen was neutralized, which is significantly more a compliment to Carolina and much less an indictment of Quinnen Williams. Remember, we talked about this in the past with Leonard Williams. Remember, everyone was like, oh, he's always double teamed. His sack numbers aren't there. But like we saw with the Giants, I think it was just last year, I believe he had his breakout year. He put up huge numbers. The talent is there with Quinnen. Everyone knows the talent is there. If you're questioning his talent, you're crazy. You know the talent is there. He wasn't that he was invisible. He was neutralized. And again, I have to go back and watch Elflein more because maybe he balled out. Maybe Elflein had an amazing game, but I do remember Quinnen being double teamed a lot. So I do just want to say that I do remember a lot of double teams on him. So we mentioned Quinnen. Let me bring it up again. We mentioned Quinnen. I mentioned John Franklin Myers. That was Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff had 3 pressures in that game. So John Franklin Myers, Quinnen Williams, and Bryce Huff together pressured the quarterback 12 times. Just the 3 of them. Sorry, just the 4 of them. So Shaq Lawson also put up 3 tackles and a pressure. So like we said, it only translated to 1 sack, unfortunately. I see you guys in the chat. Appreciate all you guys. Appreciate everyone that's here. John, appreciate you, man. All you guys. John saying a lot of things to clean up, but a team with 13 rookies playing, especially the quarterback, including the quarterback, rookie head coach, rookie OC, team rebounded well in the second half. Yeah, man, they totally did. And that was, again, a big thing that I pointed out and jumped out to me. I even pointed it out at halftime. If you guys remember, find it. I had right here, yeah. Right at halftime, I tweeted out one of the many, many problems with the Jets last year was their inability to adapt and change what they're doing in the second half if it isn't working. I really wanted to see if that changed, and it did. We watched it change. Like we talked about, we got into it before. So those second half adjustments were key. David points out Salah's energy was also part of the adjustment. 100%, David, 100%. I mean, Adam Gase in the past coming out with his monotonistic attitude, that doesn't motivate anybody. Remember, think about like with Rex Ryan. Players used to want to run through a wall for Rex Ryan. Man, those guys were motivated. Ask Bart Scott. Bart Scott will tell you how much he freaking loved Rex Ryan and the energy that he brought to the field. So yeah, without a doubt, David, the Salah's energy changes things. Even if it's just, him being mad about something or motivating you, his energy changes things. Same thing again with the adjustments, like Jenny's points out. Shout out to Jenny. Appreciate all you guys here. Panthers experience won them the first half. So glad we made adjustments. And like you said, you were worried, but with those adjustments, we almost came back. the rookie quarterback in his first game under constant duress, constant pressure, running for his life, throwing perfect footballs that are being dropped. He almost brought us back in this game because of the adjustments made at the half. Like Snoopy says, Zach got his ass beaten. I don't like it. Man, that was the big thing on Twitter, and I saw that. A lot of people on Twitter were saying that if Zack Wilson gets hurt, this is 1,000% the offensive line's fault. And it is. You guys are 100% right. That offensive line play, and we're going to get into it a little more, was a travesty. That offensive line play was beyond horrendous. It was disgusting, honestly, how bad it was. How bad that line was collapsing all around him. Not just around the edges, but literally collapsing into him. It was awful. So I didn't like it. It was disgusting to watch. Thank God Zack Wilson is as athletic and amazing in the pocket as he is, right? Imagine if we had a quarterback back there that didn't have that kind of ability. Man, he'd be dead. Those offensive linemen would be pallbearers right now. He would have died on the field. So thank God Zack Wilson has the ability to escape like that, to move like that. Like we said, he faked out Brian Burns. Like, that was really impressive. Like, that was some amazing stuff. Like, as much as it sucked to see that, remember, as we talked about, I told you guys always, you remember, from the beginning, way back, I was saying the best thing is his pocket presence. His pocket presence, his pocket awareness, his anticipation in the pocket, his mobility in the pocket was always just beyond. Like, everything else was great, but that was another echelon that made me love the kid. And that's what we saw yesterday. Unfortunately, we saw a lot of it, but we saw that. And it was really, really nice to see. I mean, it was sad that the offensive line was that bad. So again, I appreciate all you guys here. Appreciate you, Jenny, Snoopy, Kevin. Like Kevin says, hell yeah. Second half adjustments were major positive. Like Kevin said, I felt the same way, bro. And I was saying the same thing. Play calling the first half was very predictable. Again, the offensive line gets like 90% of the blame. The wide receivers didn't help at all. Those drops were terrible. But even on top of that, I felt like the play calling wasn't what I expected. Like, you guys know what I'm talking about. Like, you've seen it with the Niners. The Niners scheme people open. They have explosive, dynamic plays. They have intriguing plays that you don't expect. I felt like I didn't see that. I felt like I saw it more in the second half. So maybe that was Mike LaFleur baby stepping Zack Wilson. That was my take on this, because it did seem to get better in the second half. And we know Mike LaFleur is capable of it. Like, we know that. So my thought was maybe it's like, kind of like baby stepping Zack Wilson. Maybe they're, like just trying to give him a little bit. But man, you guys remember his intelligence, his ability, his improvisational ability. That's what makes him special. So man, I say not everything, but throw some shit at the kid. Like we saw in the second half. Give him the opportunity to be amazing. Like, don't handcuff him. Don't do it. This kid is too unbelievably gifted to be handcuffed. And again, I'm not saying throw everything at him. I'm not saying this is Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, give him, the most extent of the playbook and freedom you could imagine. But at the same time, don't handcuff the kid. Give the kid the ability to show you what makes him so special. Hater agrees, man. That offensive line was terrible. Like, that offensive line, like I said, like, I wanted to put them in a box, like a box of shame. Like, I wanted just like, I don't know if you guys, I think it was Game of Thrones where they like make you walk the street after you've done something wrong and they're like ringing the bell. That's what the offensive line needed, man. The offensive line needed to be marched through the street with Saleh with a bell going, shame, shame, shame. Like, it was shameful. It was really shameful, that offensive line play. If you're an offensive lineman on the Jets and you're not embarrassed right now, there's something wrong with you, because you should be massively embarrassed, like massively embarrassed. So again, like, I appreciate all your guys' comments, appreciate everything you guys bring. Keep bringing it, keep bringing your comments, keep bringing your thoughts. I'm going to keep moving through, the stuff I was talking about. So we mentioned the DBs, we mentioned the defensive line, how I thought they looked good. Because again, we saw how JFM, Huff, and Quinnen all had 3 pressures in that game. And beyond that, JFM had himself a game. JFM had 2 TFLs and 1 quarterback hit that translated to a sack. So he had 1 sack and 2 TFLs. The other one that the stats don't jump off the page, Foley Fatukasi only had one quarterback hit, but man, Foley was awesome. I felt Foley was really, really awesome, and the grades show it. Like, I think I forgot, I put it out this morning as well. I think Connor might have as well. The two highest graded defensive players for the New York Jets in yesterday's game were John Franklin Myers, who had, I believe it was like 80.7, and Foley Fatukasi, who had a 74.5, I believe. Don't have it in front of me, but I believe that's about what they had. Foley had himself a game. And as you guys remembered, I kept saying that, the biggest thing, the number one thing was shutting down Christian McCaffrey. And because of that, I felt Foley would play a lot more, and he did. Foley got a lot of snaps, played a lot, shut down the middle of the field. Unfortunately, again, and I pointed this out as well when we talk about the defensive line, we mentioned these numbers. They're not bad, but again, you got to put it in perspective. It is Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is one of the best running backs in the entire NFL. And as you guys remember, we talked about on Friday, one of the arguably the best complete multidimensional running back in the league. In the pass game, he's amazing, and the run game. We talked about how the pass game padded Darnold's stats and made him look a lot better. He hauled in all 9 of his targets. So the defensive line was good. It only translated to 1 sack, but they were good, and I think that's something Robert Saleh is going to address. I think he's going to address the fact that they were getting pressure, they were getting disruption, but it wasn't translating, and why. That, I feel like, is going to be something he is majorly going to address. So, and as you guys remember, we talked about this. This was point number 4, and if anything, it was the worst one, like we talked about. Point number 4 was what sunk, and thankfully, he almost brought it back in the second half, but this is what sunk the ship. This is what absolutely sunk the ship. Remember, my point number 4 was that the Jets' offensive line needs to play well. And you know what? After yesterday, I would have settled for average. Forget well. Forget well. I would have settled for average offensive line play. Guys, we got horrendous offensive line play. That offensive line was disgusting. They were completely collapsing the tackles. Like we said, Brian Burns, right at the beginning of the game, check out the highlights. You can see it. He blasted through Fant like Fant wasn't even there. They might as well have just taken Fant off for that play and given us an extra wide receiver to allow maybe something to happen. So the edges were collapsing, but like we also mentioned, the interior was collapsing. Derek Brown was blowing that interior up. And as you guys remember, I brought up, don't sleep on DaQuan Jones. DaQuan Jones was a talented defensive tackle for the Packers. He played well too. Him and Brown collapsed the middle of that offensive line. And like we mentioned earlier, unless you're Trevor Lawrence and you're 6'6" or taller, every other quarterback in the NFL can't see shit when that offensive line collapses in front of them. So Zack Wilson was constantly having the edges fall upon him and constantly having the offensive line shoved into him, back into him. So as we talked about, he looked very impressive with those instances. And even with this horrible pressure and having to escape, he was making great throws on the run. So this Jets offensive line, horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. And as you guys remember, I said I was going to, bring up things that, we could do to potentially improve this team. The offensive line was so bad that if I was Joe Douglas, I'm looking into trades. Like, I'm looking into, okay, just off the top of my head, I don't have any names, but who's somebody that's from the 2018 draft class that has had a very good 3 years and is going to be a free agent next year that maybe we could trade for? Or somebody, that's a proven veteran that doesn't have a contract that we can somehow get, that doesn't have too much guaranteed money. But that might be the option right now. I mean, this offensive line was so bad. Like I can't emphasize, guys, just this fact alone. The offensive line was absolutely horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. To the point where, like I just said, if I were Joe Douglas, I might looking into some people. I might be looking into, who I can acquire, even if it's a big name, even if I have to trade a second-round pick to get a big-name guy. It's worth it at this point because that offensive line play was awful. So while we're talking about the offensive line, quick update on Mekhi Becton, because as you guys know, and it was really sad to see, Mekhi Becton gets hurt on Zack Wilson's first touchdown. Like that just, man, like Mekhi Becton got hurt on Zack Wilson's first touchdown. It's like, you don't want those two things synonymous with each other. Like, come on. But that's what happened. So with Mekhi Becton, it turned out it was a knee injury. They said that the kneecap was dislocated, but it was put back into place. Now, I pointed that on Twitter, and I do want to stress, I'm not a doctor. So I don't have a disclosure to put up on the screen, but I do want to stress, not a doctor. But based on the research I did, it had said if surgery is required, that's much more extensive and prolongs the timetable to over 6 weeks, potentially even season ending, honestly. If the kneecap is able to be put back into place, you're looking at more of a 4 to 6 week timeline. So as of right now, from what I remember the last word was, and I have it right here. Yes, they were saying that with Mekhi Becton, they're saying that he's getting a second opinion to see if he needs surgery or not. That made me nervous because, as you guys remember, the first report we heard was that the knee doesn't seem that the knee went back into place on its own and he's going to get MRIs, but it looked promising. Now that they're saying they want a second opinion to see if he needs surgery, I feel like, if they got great news from the first doctor, they wouldn't be doing that. So this is a little iffy right now. There's a chance he will need surgery. And if Mekhi Becton needs surgery on that kneecap, it not only goes beyond 6 weeks, it has the potential to be a season-ending injury. It actually does. But if we're lucky, it doesn't need surgery, and they go back to that initial timeline of 4 to 6 weeks. So we just got to keep our fingers crossed and hope right now, okay? So, as you guys remember, my fifth point on my fifth point on Monday, on Friday when we went through the game was the wide receivers. As you remember, I talked about how Crowder was out of the game because of COVID, and Cole was questionable, but most likely not going to play. Remember, I talked about how Cole did not participate in practice on Friday. He looked like he wasn't going to play. We needed big games from Corey Davis, big games from Elijah Moore. Figured Mims would get an opportunity. Well, this was surprising. This was very, very surprising, and we're going to talk about this for a second. So Corey Davis had himself a game. Corey Davis did struggle a bit in coverage against J.C. Horn, which is to be expected. Again, as I pointed out, on Twitter, J.C. Horn was the best corner in this draft. As you guys remember, I was saying back before the draft happened that even though Surtain may go first, Horn's really the best. I kept saying Horn was the best corner in this draft, and the Panthers agreed with me. So that was an excellent matchup. Excellent matchup on those two, but Corey Davis played admirably. In fact, as we saw, Corey Davis, in his whole 4 years with the Tennessee Titans, he only had 11 touchdowns. He only had 11 touchdowns over those entire 4 years. Well, yesterday, Corey Davis had 2. Yesterday, Corey Davis had 2 touchdowns in his first game with the New York Jets. What does that tell you? That he's ready to be the wide receiver 1, and he is a wide receiver 1. So that is what this kid is stepping into. He's ready to take that role, and man, with 97 yards and 2 touchdowns, even though he did have one bad drop, he did have one drop that was really bad, but still, 97 yards and 2 touchdowns, that's a game. So, bringing it back up, Corey Davis holding 5 of his 7 receptions. So one of them was a bad drop. One was bad. The other, I remember not either was off target. One was a bad drop. One wasn't really on him. But again, 97 yards and 2 touchdowns, that's damn good. So like we just said, he's only had 11 touchdowns over 4 years, and now he has 2. So this could be the beginning of Corey Davis really stepping into being a true wide receiver 1. So the other thing is that we talked about was Elijah Moore having a big game. And not only did that not happen, he didn't look good. Now, again, like I'm going to point out right here, Elijah Moore was a rookie in his first game. He was a rookie wide receiver who didn't play in the preseason. Remember, Moore was injured and did not play in the preseason. So he didn't have the ability to work on his timing with Zach. And I know some people are saying, oh, well, he didn't practice. But guys, remember, we've talked about this. I myself have yelled so many times how important the preseason is, how important it is to see what you do against real competition, other players, not just your own. So yeah, Moore played with him when pads were on, but it wasn't the same. It's not the same as preseason. So Moore is going to get better. You guys remember the numbers I put up on Moore. I'm not worried about him. I'm not. I am not worried about Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore, remember the numbers we talked about, he has the ability, even though DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown both came from Ole Miss, Elijah Moore has the potential to be the best of all three of them. And that's true. He does. So, yes, he had a bad first game. And when we say bad, we mean bad. Like Elijah Moore ended the game with negative yards. So if you started Elijah Moore in fantasy, you lost points. And I'm sorry, but you lost points. So Moore had 4 passes go his way, and he only caught one of them for negative yardage. Now, what's interesting, as I pointed out, I thought, Moore was going to be the one to have a big game in, the first week. It wasn't him. It was Braxton Barrios. Braxton Barrios saw as many targets as Corey Davis. Just let that sink in for a second. Corey Davis, the true wide receiver 1, the guy that's the one that Zack and the chemistry has been building all this potential. Barrios saw as many targets as he did. And Barrios hauled in the same amount. Barrios, and ironically, same thing. It's kind of ironic. Barrios had 1 bad drop and 1 that wasn't his fault. So just kind of identical to Corey. But Barrios hauled in 5 of his 7 receptions for 51 yards. And, like we said, 1 was a bad drop, but he had over 50 yards. And he was the 2nd leading receiver on the New York Jets. So Barrios, guys, Barrios had a game. But, like we said down here, I thought too, Denzel Mims is going to get opportunity, right? I mean, we figured, Denzel Mims is the guy behind Keelan Cole, right? Keelan Cole's out. Mims is going to have a game. Well, guys, Mims didn't play. You guys remember? Mims barely played. Mims, the whole game, we're struggling. Whole first half, we can't get anything done. No receivers are doing anything really right. Massive drops, key drops, like we say here, key drops, especially by Elijah Moore. But we don't see Denzel Mims. No Mims. He's not there. We don't see Mims until the end of the game. And when he comes in at the end of the game, he hauls in 1 catch for 40 yards. Denzel Mims hauled in his only target for 40 yards. He averaged 40 yards because he hauled in the only pass to him. Now, I thought that was weird. And you guys remember I took to Twitter and said that. Just kind of like I said now, that, you got Cole out, you got Crowder out. Barrios gets 7 targets. Mims doesn't come in till the end of the game and makes a good play. So that was surprising to me. But if you guys didn't hear Robert Saleh's press conference today, a bombshell was dropped. So if you didn't hear it, please go check out my Twitter feed because I tweeted it out. They asked Robert Saleh about Denzel Mims. And Robert Saleh flat out said that Denzel Mims, this was intentional. This wasn't accidental. It wasn't accidental or, just the fact that, we were playing the hot hand with Barrios. No, this was intentional. Robert Saleh said that the 3 starters between Davis, Moore, and Barrios were going to get the most time. And then went into the fact that, if Mims wants to see more time, he has to step up, show he can do more, be more of a role. But I'm processing still that first part. I'm like, wait a minute. So Denzel Mims is below Braxton Barrios on the Jets depth chart. Yes, according to Robert Saleh, yes. He said that the majority of snaps went to Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, and Braxton Barrios, which is 100% true. If you guys go look at the snap counts, the 3 of them were by far the majority of wide receivers on the field. Even Jeff Smith played before Denzel Mims did. So as you guys know, I'm shocked because I thought Denzel Mims has a ton of potential. I don't know what's going on here. Some suggest maybe he's having issues learning the playbook. Maybe Saleh just really views him as that bad of a fit. I don't know. But somehow he confirmed it. Saleh confirmed it in today's press conference that Denzel Mims is below Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, and Braxton Barrios. And as we know, Keelan Cole and Jamison Crowder should be back next week. And he's below them too. So it turns out, shocking as it is, it turns out right now, Denzel Mims is wide receiver 6 on this team right now. Denzel Mims, surprisingly, is wide receiver 6. Now, as I pointed out on Twitter, that could change. That could 100% change. But like Saleh just said, Barrios is the guy. So it looks like Obviously, if Cole comes back, he's the second starter on the outside. And if Crowder comes back, obviously he's the starter on the inside with Moore. But even Barrios is going to see more time than Denzel Mims does. So Mims is buried right now. Like we said, especially with Cole coming back and especially with Crowder coming back. So as you guys remember, my take on the wide receivers, they were okay. That's my honest feeling on them. Corey Davis had a great game, but he also had a crucial drop. Braxton Barrios had a good game, also had a crucial drop. Moore had an atrocious game and had a lot of crucial drops. But more importantly, as you guys remember, I talked about this on my podcast, on my show, when we kept Jeff Smith. As you guys remember, my take on Jeff Smith and why I liked him was, remember, I said that he was a quarterback in college. So I felt that that would allow him to help Zack Wilson out when the pocket collapsed, to be able to better anticipate and see when the pocket is collapsing and when Zack Wilson is under duress and make that second effort. That was a problem. The Jets wide receivers, which has kind of honestly been our problem for a long time now. I thought it was fixed, but it didn't look fixed yesterday. Honestly, all of our wide receivers, Corey Davis did a good job on a few plays. On that touchdown, he rolled out to the right, but honestly, he did the same thing a couple of times. The majority of time, our wide receivers did not do a good job creating separation and did not put in a second effort. That pocket was constantly collapsing on Zack Wilson. You guys remember we talked about it. That pocket was Swiss freaking cheese. He was running every second, every which direction. The wide receivers were not putting in second efforts, not getting open fast enough. And that's why was gonna get to the running backs, but I want to jump to the tight ends for a second. Because my take, as you guys remember, I put that on Twitter. I mentioned all the positional groups. I said that I felt the tight ends weren't good. And some people questioned me on that and said, well, Croft looked good. Griffin was okay. Yeah, they didn't have awful games. But here's the thing. So if we look at their numbers, Tyler Kroft caught 3 of his 5 catches. That's basically a 50%. And Ryan Griffin caught 3 of 6. That is 50%. So yes, in the game, I believe, if I remember correct, one of Ryan Griffin's passes wasn't his fault. And for Kroft, I don't think any were, if I remember correct. I think the 2 weren't his fault, but for Griffin, 2 were. As you guys know, I wasn't a big fan on Ryan Griffin. I didn't even want him, honestly, to make the roster. I feel like our tight ends, people say, oh, they're not bad. But here's the thing. The pocket was constantly collapsing, like we said. That pocket, Wilson was constantly under duress. The tight end's job is to be a big body guy. I always say this with all tight ends. If that pocket is collapsing, your freaking job is to turn around. That's your job. If that pocket is collapsed, your job right now, I don't care where you are on the field, is to turn around and be a receiving option. Use your big body to box somebody out and give your quarterback a security option. That has always been my feeling on tight ends. That specifically on the short passes, specifically on the inside game, but more importantly, like in this situation, when the pocket is collapsing, when your quarterback is under duress, when he's forced out of the pocket, the tight end's job is to immediately turn the hell around. His job is to immediately spin the hell around, become a receiving option for his wide receiver, use his big body to his advantage. Neither one of those guys did that. Tyler Kroft nor Ryan Griffin. Neither one of those guys did that. So again, Griffin dropped half the balls that came his way, even though not all were his fault. Kroft too, I wasn't impressed. I feel like they should have been able to get open more in the middle of the field. I feel like, especially with how bad the pressure was, they should have been working harder to try to create quicker separation, and they should have been providing security blankets for Zack Wilson. So I was not impressed. I was not impressed. In my opinion, tight ends were bad. My take, it's time to elevate Kenny Yeboah. That's my take, guys. It's time to bring Kenny Yeboah off the damn practice squad and maybe give Zack Wilson an option. Because Ryan Griffin, in my opinion, shouldn't even be on the team. Tyler Kroft should be on the team. He's a good blocking option, but the guy's almost 30 years old. Kroft is not going to, like we talked about in the past, he's not going to develop into this amazing receiving option. Kenny Yeboah can. Remember, we talked about it. Kenny Yeboah may not be the best blocker, but he's got unbelievable receiving potential. Remember, we talked about a wide receiver in a tight end body. So they got to fix the tight end position. They do not look good. Now on to the running backs. So with the running backs, as you guys remember, and that was my take number 6, my keys to victory. As you see, we're going through all the keys to victory and how the Jets didn't execute them. Well, 6 was really bad. Because remember, Mike LaFleur specifically said, we will see how the running backs will be utilized this Sunday. We will see how they plan to use the running backs and who's going to get what. Well, if Sunday yesterday was the indication of how the running backs are going to be used this season, then we're screwed. That's the honest take. If Sunday was the example of what our running situation is going to be for this year, then we're screwed because our running backs were not good. Now, yes, I agree it comes down to bad offensive line play. Bad offensive line play does not open holes for the running backs. But even still, I felt like the running backs weren't doing any favors. They weren't running between their pads. They weren't using any kind of ability to move the pocket. It was bad. It was bad. I felt like even though the offensive line was a major contributor, the running backs weren't good either. I mean, you guys remember, I had said with the running backs, remember, my big take was not keep Tevin Coleman. Remember, everyone thought I was crazy. But my take was, if we have 4 young guys that are all like 22, 23 years old, and they all look really good, why are we choosing which one to cut? Like, let's keep all of them since we're a building team and get rid of the veteran, the 28-year-old that's clearly not in our future plans. Well, obviously the Jets disagreed. They kept Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman had 9 carries for 25 yards. The dude averaged 2.7 yards per carry. Now, yes, Michael Carter averaged less, but Michael Carter's also a rookie. Tevin Coleman is a seasoned veteran. So, yes, again, the offensive line plays a major role. Yes, the offensive line did not do the running game any favors. They did not do a good job opening up holes. But still, regardless of that, as I watched the running backs play, I felt like they could have, like Michael Carter does, like we saw in college. He could have used his patience to hit better holes. They all could have. I felt like they were too eager to run downhill. They weren't shifty enough. They weren't running with enough purpose. I did not like the running back play. I felt like the running back play was bad. It left a lot to be desired, even with how bad the offensive line play. And like Mike LaFleur said, if Sunday was an indication to what our running game is going to be, we're screwed. We're absolutely screwed. We need much, much better running game. So we've talked about a lot of positionals. We got into the defensive line, the wide receivers, the running backs, the tight ends, Zack Wilson. Last couple I want to get into. I want to talk to you guys about the linebackers because we didn't talk about the linebackers yet. Now, as you guys remember, Jamien Sherwood got hurt. And what I got excited about, as you guys also remember, was when they announced Jamien Sherwood as the Mike linebacker, my immediate thought was, okay, wait, is C.J. Mosley not a leader? But then immediately Robert Saleh says, C.J. Mosley's the leader. He's the veteran presence. He's the guy that's going to be calling the plays. So that's what was really intriguing to me. And that's, as you guys remember, we talked about, that's what made me realize that C.J. Mosley must look so fast and so quick that Saleh wants him on the outside, just like Hamza Nasruddin. He wants him and Hamza locking down the interiors of the field. Just like, think about like we talked about with the slot corners. Remember, I kept saying that between Michael Carter II and Javelin Guidry, the Jets are going to be able to blanket the interior of the field. Well, the same thing applies, but in linebacker form. Saleh probably figured between C.J. Mosley and Hamza Nasruddin, we can blanket the field with bigger-bodied players. Well, Mosley was playing on the outside, but as we know, he did not look good. And when I say didn't look good, I mean, I didn't think he looked awful. Like, I didn't think he looked as awful as PFF graded him. PFF, and like this still blows my mind, PFF gave C.J. Mosley a 29.3. 29.3. That's like insanely low. Like, that's like beyond low. Like, that's like ridiculously low. I didn't think he was that awful. I thought, yes, he was out of alignment a couple of times. Yes, the old C.J. Mosley we saw that would, be able to pick things up in the backfield and be the first one on the tackle. I felt like we didn't see that. But I didn't think he was the worst in coverage. He had 2 bad coverage botches. He definitely did. But other than that, I didn't think he was 29 PFF bad. I didn't think he was that bad. So C.J. Mosley graded massively poorly. We need him to play better. And Hamza on the other outside, they'll be locking it down. Now, we said Jamien Sherwood went out. Now, when Jamien Sherwood went out, my immediate thought is, okay, we're going to see Blake Cashman. In comes Blake Cashman. Well, Blake Cashman didn't come in. And what also was surprising to me was I thought maybe, Noah Dawkins could come in. Well, we saw Shawn Phillips. Shawn Phillips, a player that had just been, a player that had just been elevated from the practice squad 24 hours before. Like 24 hours before the game, Shawn Phillips was activated from the practice squad. Well, he played middle linebacker, and guess what? He had the most tackles of any Jets player. Shawn Phillips, a player from the practice squad, playing in his first game with us 24 hours after being elevated, had the most tackles of any Jets player with 12. So that's interesting. Maybe he impressed the coaching staff. Maybe he's going to get more time. So that's interesting. Again, if Jamian Sherwood comes back, obviously he's the middle linebacker. Remember, I told you guys I was excited about him in the middle because remember, he's a hitter. Jamian Sherwood's a monster. Like this dude murders people. That's why you want him in the middle laying people out. Mosley and Hamza together on the outside covering. But Shawn Phillips looked good. So the last one I want to get into with you guys. So we talked about the corners before. And I mentioned, as I said, I thought the young CBs looked very good. As you guys remember, my big take, you saw it on Twitter. Everyone was complaining about the young cornerbacks. But I kept saying Bryce Hall, Brandon Echols, Javelin Guidry, and Michael Carter II. The four of them looked excellent throughout all of the offseason, looked very good in the preseason, have a lot of potential. The potential is there. Yes, they're not proven. But remember, like we talked about, that's only bad if they don't do well. And they did well. They shined. And I think, again, it's because the Jets' pass rush wasn't as bad as it looked. Remember, we said multiple players had 3 pressures or more. Multiple players had multiple QB hits. It only translated to 1 sack. So even though it didn't translate, which again, I think is something Robert Saleh is going to address, there was pressure. And because there was pressure, it took the pressure off of the corners. But as you guys remember, as good as the young CBs looked, the safeties not so much. That's the last thing I'm going to leave with you guys. The safeties looked bad. The safeties looked very bad, in my opinion. Now, the reasoning is, again, I thought the cornerbacks covered well. But whenever a play went deep, I felt like there was botched coverage. Whenever the corners needed help over the top, I felt like they weren't getting it. So, for example, Robbie Anderson's huge touchdown throw. That obviously he didn't throw it to himself. His catch. Robbie Anderson's huge touchdown catch. That wasn't against any of our young DBs. No. That was a botched coverage by the safeties in the backfield. So I personally felt in this game that the backfield left a lot to be desired. And apparently I wasn't wrong because Marcus May didn't even grade well. PFF gave Marcus May, I think it was like a 54 something or like a 57 something. It wasn't good. So Marcus May graded very low. All the safeties did not look good. And Redwine, who stepped in, did not look good. And on top of all that, as we saw, LaMarcus Joyner got hurt. If you guys aren't aware yet, unfortunately now I have to tell you, he's out for the year. LaMarcus Joyner is now out for the year. And you guys remember how hyped I was about him and May being together. Remember how LaMarcus Joyner was one of the best free safeties when he played exclusively safety in the NFL. I was so excited, and so were you guys, about having LaMarcus Joyner exclusively as a safety. And now he's out for the year. The biggest thing is going to be Ashton Davis. Ashton Davis can come back week 4. That's when he can first come back from IR. Is he going to come back? That's the $1 million question. So as of right now, we have Redwine, who looked bad. They could bring back Niesman, but that's not a great option. Honestly, the only one is really Marcus May. And like we just said, Marcus May did not look good yesterday. I felt like, he wasn't the worst. I definitely felt like he wasn't awful, but he didn't look as good as he did in 2020. If you go back to 2020, the way Marcus May was able to read the field and play in the backfield very well, I didn't feel that way. I really, really didn't. He felt more out of place, honestly. So again, my take was the safeties did not look good. The young corners look good, but the safety help over the top and just the backfield in general, especially over that Robbie Anderson touchdown, was bad. The safeties were not that good. And like we said, Joyner's out for the year. Davis can't even come back to week 4, and that's if he can come back. For all we know, he can't even come back. So I think offensive line and safety are going to be 2 positions that Joe Douglas is aggressively looking to do something about right now. And he better be. In my opinion, he damn well better be. Because like we just said, it's safety. We looked awful. Bad. Very bad. Even May looked bad. And like we said, we lost Joyner for the year. May not get Davis back week 4. And if he's not back by then, I think he can't come back again till like week 8-ish. So that's a very big question mark right now. And that's it. Red wine looked awful. And bringing Niesman back isn't a great option either. So I think, again, that, and again, how horrendous the offensive line play. And again, that's my biggest takeaway, guys, please. That's my biggest takeaway. If there's any two things to take away from my show right now, my biggest takeaways are the second half adjustments and the horrendous O-line. Those are my two takeaways. I think I have a little smudge on my camera. There we go. So those are my two biggest takeaways, those second half adjustments, because again, they brought us back into the game. They allowed the Jets to be in the game because that first half was atrocious. Even how bad the offensive line was. Key drops, no one getting open, defense looked bad, couldn't contain Christian McCaffrey to save their lives. Make these adjustments in the second half and almost won the game. We're able to come back and almost win. But this offensive line was horrible. Like we said, in the second half, it wasn't good. It literally went from like the worst thing you can imagine to bad. Like that's what it did. It upgraded from absolutely horrendous to bad. That was the upgrade. It never got better than bad. But apparently bad was good enough for Zack Wilson to be able to function. So offensive line and safeties are two positions that Joe Douglas either needs to find free agents in or, again, like we said, trade. Right now is the time. The season just started. Things could be mixed up. Look into, like I said, I would look into either veterans that don't have huge money. Like either all their money was paid already. Like, I don't know, let's say it's a guy that had 40 guaranteed million because he's that good, but 30 of it was already paid or something. Something like that, where we can get the guy on a good deal. Or potentially, like I mentioned before, someone who was like a 2018 draft pick who's in the last year of their deal and has looked really good, and someone you could trade for to potentially step up and be good this year and then sign long term. So those are the two positions. I think Joe obviously will look into other things as well, but offensive line and safety massively, massively need to be addressed. So I see all you guys in the comments. I appreciate all you guys. Appreciate you, Jeremy, Vern. Shout out to Hater, Rusty, Steven, you're here. Appreciate you, my brother. All you guys, Matthias is here. I mentioned Vern, I think, before. All you guys, man. I appreciate all you guys. Jenny's here. Thank all of you guys for being here. Appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for being part of the podcast. Hope you enjoyed the breakdown. It really, honestly, in a nutshell, honestly comes down to, if you have to sum it up quickly, the offensive line was a train wreck, but the defense wasn't really bad except for the safeties. And the offense, the real problems other than the line, honestly, to be honest, it was all pretty bad on offense except for Zack Wilson. Like we said, even though the receivers looked okay, Corey Davis did have a big drop. Moore was awful. And Denzel Mims really didn't play. And like we said, he's a wide receiver 6 right now. Whether we agree with it or not, whether we like it or not, Robert Saleh has announced that Denzel Mims is wide receiver 6 when Cole and Crowder come back. So again, the big takeaway is the offense, other than Zach, really needs to get better. And the defense was good except for the safeties. That's really like the best quick snapshot of like the whole thing. So I think Vern makes a good point here. Let's hit the film room and go beat the Pats. Vern, you're 100% right, man. You remember, like we talked about with Zack Wilson, this kid's a film junkie. Remember, before the draft, when all those BS rumors were coming out, remember, he's not a team player. He doesn't study film. He doesn't get it. Remember, I was putting out video of him on his pro day saying, all I do is eat, sleep, and breathe football and watch film. Like, that's all I do. And I'm like, guys, this is the guy. Like, this kid, he is a film junkie. Zack Wilson is 100%, probably right now until the end of the week, is studying film, not just on the Patriots, but on what he did wrong last week. He's studying the film from last week to see what he did wrong, to see what he can improve, and he's studying the film for the Patriots to be able to see what he can do and what he can exploit. So Zach's a film junkie. He's learning. Like we said, he wasn't the problem. The kid was running for his life. And like I mentioned, I bet a lot of you guys felt too, it was disgusting and embarrassing to watch. As a Jet fan, I was personally disgusted and embarrassed to watch Zack Wilson that under duress, to watch him that badly have to scramble. I think there was maybe, honestly, the whole game, like 4 plays where he wasn't under pressure. I honestly think it was something like that, like something crazy. So like Jeremy points out, one drop, he's human. I only say because it was a big drop. It was a crucial drop at the time. But again, he did catch both touchdowns. Corey Davis did catch both touchdowns. And the second touchdown, we talked about how bad the wide receivers were at their second effort. That was the second effort. Remember, Corey Davis was, I'm trying to give you guys like an end zone right here. Corey Davis was right here when Zack Wilson rolled out. Remember, he fell to the right to be able to create separation and get open. So Corey did do that, which is key. But we have to see it more, guys. I need to see our wide receivers creating better separation, getting separation faster, and doing second efforts. Like, you got to give second efforts. When Zack Wilson is running for his life, if you're standing still, I hope Robert Saleh floors you. Like, I hope he does. Like, that's crazy to me, and I saw that a few times. So, like Jeremy points out, Mims played 2 snaps, got a 40-yard completion. Like I said, I thought it was weird. Now, I tweeted it out. I was like, I thought we were going to be seeing a lot of him. He doesn't play all game. And then when he comes in, he has like 1 catch for 40 yards. But we heard what Robert Saleh said. Robert Saleh, flat out today in his press conference, said that Barrios, Moore, and Davis are the 3 top receivers. And he went on a whole thing that Mims needs to do X, Y, and Z and be better at these things to earn opportunity. And when Cole and Crowder comes back, he's just going to be behind them too. So, oh man, Vern, I agree with you, brother, and I'm glad you pointed out. But I was thinking it, and I was sad to think it too. Like, we know, guys, Bill Belichick, even though, you know, the team struggled since they lost Tom Brady, the guy knows football. He understands. You don't think he was watching week 1? He watched the Panthers eviscerate our offensive line. You know what he's doing this week. This week, all Bill is preaching to his guys is getting to Zach. That is the goal. They're going to be trying to get to Zach as fast and as quick and as deadly as possible. So our offensive line needs to step the hell up. Like, they were so bad. Like, being 50% better doesn't even cut it. They need to be 100% better. The offensive line needs to be 100% better than they were last week. And Vern, you're right, man. Belichick knows what he's doing. He's going to exploit that. So he's going to try to feast on that line. And man, they better step the hell up. We better see better offensive freaking line play next week. Like Vern says, you can't expect Red Wine to cover Robbie. No, it's true. It's 100% true. But if you watch the play, he wasn't on him the entire. From what I saw, I didn't like the safety play. I'm not, and again, he just was elevated. You know, he's not like the main guy. He's really stepping in because of injury. But that's a problem right now. Like I was kind of just saying, I felt like in that game, loved our young DBs. I thought our young DBs played really well. But when it came to safety help over the top, when it came to any deep play or anything in the backfield, I felt like we were very weak. I felt like we struggled and we looked lost. So now that Joyner's out for the season and Davis is a big question mark, we got to get this answered because red wine is not the answer. So again, I don't know if it's trading a second or third or fourth round pick to get a quality safety. But again, if it's worth the trade, it's worth doing. If we can get a quality safety, them and offensive line would be positions to look into right now. I appreciate all your guys' comments. Love it here, guys. Appreciate all your comments. Appreciate everything you guys are bringing up. Steven says, oh, man, Steven, I hope you're not right. I mean, you might be right, and chances are you probably are right. I mean, I hope you're not, but it might get worse before it gets better. Remember, we talked about this. You guys remember, that was my big takeaway. Remember, I kept saying that, yes, I think Zach has all the potential in the world, but he's a rookie quarterback with a rookie OC and a rookie head coach going into their first game. There's going to be growing pains. There's going to be issues. Remember, as you guys remember, my big take for the season was I wasn't as much, like others, so focused on the record. So many people are like, we got to have this many wins. If we have this many losses, it's unacceptable. I wasn't focused on that as much. Remember, my big thing was just improvement. I wanted to see Zach getting better week to week, not making the same mistakes, making better reads, progressing, the wide receivers doing better, the whole team doing better overall. So, yes, Steve, it might get worse before it gets better, but as long as it gets better. That's the point there. As long as it gets better. That's what we need to see. If we can keep trending in the right direction, again, making those second half adjustments, doing the right things, it's going to get better. But honestly, guys, the biggest thing, without question, like there were a lot of factors, but nothing weighs in like the offensive line. Nothing. Nothing comes even close. Nothing is even a fraction of a modicum close of weighing in as much as the offensive line yesterday. The offensive line was responsible for pretty much all of it, honestly, because they allowed the defense to be on the field more with all those 3 and outs. I know we made adjustments in the second half, but that offensive line was absolutely horrendous. Like, can't stress it enough. Absolutely horrendous. And again, not even just the tackles. The center of that line just collapsing in Zach's face. It was really, really upsetting to see. I'll be honest, really upsetting to see. So again, guys, I appreciate all your guys' comments. Vern, Steven, Jeremy, Hater, all you guys. I appreciate all you guys being here. Appreciate all you guys tuning in. Same thing. Vern makes a good point. Did we talk about how bad the backfield blocking was? Yeah, man. Yeah, the run. I mentioned the running backs before, but I'll bring that up too. I think it was Ty Johnson. I don't have my notes in front of me right now, but I remember there was one play where Brian Burns got through, and the running back could have chipped him. I think it was Ty Johnson. The running back could have chipped him, but he just walked by. He let Brian Burns walk right by him. Like, are you out of your everlasting mind? So, yeah, the running backs, like I said before, guys, yes, the offensive line played a role, but the running backs were bad. The running backs, even with how bad the offensive line play was, they didn't do themselves any favors. They didn't run with purpose. They didn't hit the gaps properly. And New England is going to exploit that. New England is 100% going to exploit that. Because right now, our running game is non-existent. We had, and if this upsets you, it should. I hope it upsets you. We had 45 rushing yards in that game. 45. We didn't even break 50 in a freaking committee. And like Vern pointed out, they can't block. They're missing assignments left and right. So like Salah pointed out, it's not just on the offensive line. Even though the offensive line was a train wreck, the running backs were bad, man. The running backs were bad. You want my take? My take was what we should have done all along. My take was get rid of Tevin Coleman, Josh Adams. I want Josh Adams, LaMichael Pirine, Ty Johnson, Michael Carter. I want a 4-person backfield of that. That's what I want. We'll see if it happens, but Tevin Coleman did not look good. Nobody looked good. All the Jets running backs looked atrocious. All 3 that played, Tevin Coleman, Ty Johnson, and Michael Carter. All 3 of them, just like the offensive line right now, they kind of belong in that box of shame. Because again, like Vern pointed out, horrible backfield blocking, but also just even though the offensive line wasn't blocking well, I felt like they could have done better with bad offensive line play. We've seen it. How many times have we seen in the past when we had guys like LT, Sean Green, Thomas Jones, when there was bad offensive line play, but they supplemented that by being good running backs? That was bad. Our running backs prove that if they don't have a good offensive line, they suck. That's what they prove. That if they don't have a good offensive line, they can't play well. So we need significantly better play from them. We need much less key drops from the wide receivers. We need better separation and significantly more second efforts from the wide receivers. We need the offensive line to really pick it up, like 1,000% pick it up, and then we have a chance. Because as we saw with the second half adjustments, the defense was good. And like I said, other than the safeties, I thought the whole defense was pretty good. Linebackers, pass rush, line. Again, it didn't translate to sacks, but we talked about the numbers were there. The Jets had almost as many pressures and quarterback hits as the Panthers. It just didn't translate. So that's my take. That's how I feel. Again, like always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you for being part of the Take Flight Spit and Fire podcast. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for tuning in. Just like last time, I'm going to try to bring it to you guys Thursday evenings, but it might be Friday afternoons. It varies. So either Thursdays or Fridays, I'm going to start bringing you guys the format like I've been doing, where we'll do Monday. We'll be like, a breakdown of the game like we're doing here, review of the game, breakdown of the game, positional analysis, what we liked and didn't like. And then Thursday and for Friday will be the set up for the next game. So on Thursday, most likely Thursday, but it might be Friday. So Thursday or Friday, I'm going to be coming to you guys as well. And just like I did last Thursday, Friday, I'm going to bring you the what to look for and the keys to victory for the Jets to beat the Patriots. So again, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate every single one of you being here. I appreciate you guys, there's other places for you to be. I appreciate you being here with me. I truly, truly do. Appreciate you tuning into my podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you guys at the end of the week with my Jet Patriot preview. I appreciate all you guys. Have a great week and go Jets.